And in one. Hey, it's Sandra Pike from LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I found it really interesting when I talked to this group about a month ago, and we were just talking about the Canadian market, you know, what's the differences between being out west or central Canada, you know, to being out here. And some of the markets are the same and some of the markets are totally different. But what we're going to do first is introduce everybody. And Darren, I'll leave it up to you.
Oh, I get to start. Yay.
Yes.
That could be good or bad. Yeah, my name is Darren Langille. I founded a real estate firm in Calgary, Alberta. We've had it now since 2009. And yeah, the market stats and data and how is the market is something kind of near and dear to my heart as a past or recovered engineer from my past life. So I love to talk about this stuff. So thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And Blake?
Blake Roberts. I'm in Kelowna, BC. My wife and my daughter, we work together. We branded ourselves the 97 Way Home Real Estate Group because Highway 97 runs through our city. And yeah, thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, and Dave.
Hi, everyone. David Anderson, owner of Red and White Realty. I live in Waterloo, Ontario, and I'm a member of 6 boards in Ontario, as well as owning brokerages in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and hopefully New Brunswick in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Well, good for you. You're going to be opening there. That's great.
Yeah.
So, Darren, I just want to get a sense of what your market is. So down here, this is the first time, you know, for me in 10 years that I've really experienced such an aggressive seller's market. Now, granted, I feel that our house prices are different, but, you know, are you seeing competing offers the way we are down here?
Yeah, great question. I feel like we've been a bit of the almost like the redheaded stepchild in North America ever since 2014, where most things started to continue to get better. And because of our, you know, own interprovincial federal politics and the US relations not going well with oil and gas, we've kind of steadily seen a declining market. But for the first time in a long time, we're flipped. Right now, I would say we're in a bit of a seller's market for most parts. Like we have, of course, detached, attached. The only one that's not really in that conversation is the apartment market. It continues to be oversupplied. But for the first time in 7 years, it took a pandemic to shift us into a seller's market where we are seeing competing offers often kind of across all price points. It's new for a lot of my agents who are 5 years-ish in the business. They've never experienced anything positive. It's been just fight, fight, fight. So now it's a different fight. It's an interesting one.
So given the latest development with Biden and, you know, the pipeline, do you see that affecting the market? Do you see that maybe you'll go into more of a buyer's market?
You might.
I mean, will
Calgary,
people
for all that's, yeah, I mean, it's, I think the quick answer is no. I don't think it's going to change much because Calgary's been thrown everything for the last little while. We've really hit the low points on a lot of things. Our industries have really leaned up and gotten tight and operated in a different way. The major layoffs are well beyond us. So this little thing we kind of joke at because it's like, it would have been nice, but we never even expected it to happen. So our Calgarians are just plugging through and they're pretty resilient. Our market's starting to diversify a little bit, and it's not so heavily focused on just the high income oil and gas wages. It's the other stuff. It's more of a diverse economy, and it's continuing to adjust that way.
Nice. So, David, in your market in Ontario, you know, you've had a great 2020 for sellers. How is it starting off in 2021? Are you seeing more product come to the market? Are you still having competing offers?
So I'll speak locally. In the region of Waterloo, we would normally carry about 800 single family listings at this time of year. We peak out at about 1,200 to 1,400 listings during the spring market, but normally about 800. I did a search this morning and we're currently at 76.
Oh my God. I thought we were bad.
76 homes
Wow.
for sale. And I did another search. I don't know if you can let me share the screen or not, but I'll speak to it anyway, or I can show you, whichever works best.
Oh, no, that was my screen. Just see if you can, I don't know if you can, but just see if you can.
No, it's disabled. I can speak to it. That's no problem. So I did a quick search on, there was a home that sold last night, and I wanted to look at what happened on that street in the last 6 months. So there's a house that was listed for $589, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,000 square foot home. And this is the fall, so fall of 2020. It closed in September, listed for $589 and sold for $594. Yesterday, the same style home was listed for $564.9 and sold for $777.
Wow. Wow.
So the pressure for buyers right now is crazy pressure. Like the listings are selling like hotcakes, and we can't keep the inventory. We're not getting any net inventory. So houses are coming on and going off, coming on and going off, but we're not increasing net inventory across the board at all.
That is crazy. So usually here we could have over 2,000 listings, and right now we're just under 500.
Yeah.
So it's been a struggle here as well. Blake, in Kelowna, is there any more inventory coming on, or how are you guys doing?
No, we're down the same way. I don't remember the exact number of units that are on the market, but I know in December, single family homes last year, we had 6 months in inventory. You know, that 5 to 7 months is considered balance. Last time I checked about a week ago, we had about 1.8 months of inventory, and it's definitely not better now. Lots of multiples, and a house, a little wartime house downtown Kelowna, was listed on a Thursday for $639, 22 offers later, sold for $750. That kind of thing.
Wow.
So I'm just interested listening to what Darren said about Alberta, because we're in Kelowna so much affected by what's happening there. And our market's been so busy the last couple of years, despite Calgary being slow, with them picking up. That's part of the reason, I guess, too, we're getting more Albertans right now than usual.
So, I mean, when you talk about us feeling like it's a busier market, let me put in perspective, we're sitting about 4 months of supply, and that's feeling busy for us, right? We're about 30% less inventory, actually more like 20 on the whole, 20% less inventory than we were last year. So that to us is as busy as it's felt in like 6 or 7 years. It's nowhere near like you're talking weeks of supply on your market. We're just a better months of supply. So for once, it feels reasonable. I mean, yeah, we're definitely not feeling those same pressures. We might sell shortly 1 or 2 offers, but not, 20 offers, like a lot of the markets are feeling. And I know our friends in the US too are feeling these kind of pinches as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question? Sandra, can I keep going on what Darren
Oh, yeah,
just
go
said?
ahead.
I would much prefer Darren's market to ours. I was just talking to a realtor this morning here, and right now the sellers are winning, and it's unfortunate in a real estate transaction when somebody's getting beat up. In a perfect real estate market, both sides are a little uncomfortable, and normal. You can, sellers are so happy right now. Look at all the money I'm getting. Well, okay, payback. So you know what? Because now you got to go find something, and it's not going to be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice are you giving to your buyers when you're taking them out?
I'm saying to them, guys, if I don't know where this market's going to go, it's weird to be as busy a real estate market as we are when the economy is not really doing well. This is unheard of. If you're prepared for these fluctuations of real estate, because that always happens, buy your home, be happy, and I'll do my darndest to make sure you pay a reasonable price in this crazy market. If you are speculating what may or may not happen, you're on your own. I'm with you. I'll help find you a home, but your guess is as good as mine. And if any realtor, half the realtors in our town will say, I don't know. Let's do our best. And other realtors are saying, this is what's going to happen. And I'm going, how do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Unheard of.
We
So
had a
one-
market, sorry, Dave, we had a market correction here back in 2011 at the end. We had something called the ship start here, and the market was just like it was now. You know, everything was going over ass. And what had happened was in 3 to 5 years, when you tried to sell your house, you either broke even or you lost money. So do you think, Dave, you know, is that going to happen in your market, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what are your thoughts?
So a couple of thoughts. One of the things that we really track for the brokerage anyway is the statistic of sale price versus assessed price. And in the fall of last year, we were about 1.9%. So the sale was 1.9 times assessed. Last summer, it was probably at about 1.6, and that's gradually increased it to 1.9. Now we're over 2, we're at 2.1, 2.1 and a half times assessed. So that's the barometer that we're using for buyers to say, if you're looking at this property, be prepared to pay X amount of dollars based on the assessed value, because that's the way that the statistics are showing us. As far as inventory is going, the net inventory won't increase if A, people aren't going to put their house on the market because of COVID, and B, buyers are still coming from outside of our marketplace and buying up what we've got on market. So we get a lot of east to west purchasers that they're buying in our market, but they're not replacing the inventory. So it's going to stay low for quite a while.
But don't you think, though, once maybe phase 2 rolls out of the COVID vaccine, that consumers will become more confident and product will go onto the market?
I do. I just think it takes a long time to catch up. You know, in reality, in January of this year, if the government had said, we're shutting down everything for a month, it would have given a lot of people pause, and there wouldn't have been as many sales, and it might have boosted the inventory once that lockdown sort of stopped. But because we're an essential service and things keep rolling on, the interest rates are under 2%. People with lots of equity in their home are moving out of the city into the rural areas, and they're buying bigger properties that they can spread out in. And in our marketplace, that's sort of the storm that we're in. We're getting all these buyers from outside of Kitchener-Waterloo buying in this area.
Yeah, it's, I would find here in our market, we're getting people from Ontario and BC, and then who are moving here, or we're getting people who were from here that moved away, that because our COVID numbers have been so low, that they just, you know, it's time to come home again. And most people now, they don't have to work in an office. They can just work at home. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's certainly been different. So when you are getting competing offers, Darren, in your market, you know, you have 2 offers that are are similar. What is the reason why a seller is making the choice that they do? Is it money talking? Is it the, dear seller, this is why I want your house? Like, what's the deciding factor in your market?
Yeah, great question. I think for us, because this is kind of newer. I mean, there's not this like, the sellers aren't greedy here yet. They have to be fair. A fair priced home gets good looks. But slightly over market, you'll get missed. You'll just completely get ignored and you won't get those showings. So that's kind of, we're on that teetering point, but a good, fair priced, well-positioned home will move fast. So I think for more people, because of the pessimism that's been built into our market for the last 6 or 7 years, it's actually not just about the price. It's more so about those terms. And is this going to be a smooth, easy go? Because we kind of feel lucky if a deal happens right now, because last year aside, because it was so weird, but those last 3 or 4 years, we were in a market position where maybe only 40 to 45% of all listings that tried to sell did sell. So there was a lot of people that attempted and never got anywhere. So now they're getting there, and I'm happy, and I've been kind of throwing this advice out that Calgarian homeowners have been fair and realistic, and none of them are really thinking greed yet, because that's not where our market is. So it is coming down to the simplicity, how well financed are they, and it's more about that right now.
Gotcha. And how about in your market? Blake, you talked about your seller. You talked about your buyer. What is the decision factor for the sellers in your market?
much like Darren says, ultimately, right, it's terms, it's not just price, because we've all seen situations where, you know, the highest offer gets it, but they had subjects in there that were maybe going to take a couple weeks. And you see situations where the buyer gets the home in a busy market like ours, they pay top dollar, and over the next 10, 11 days, they start to freak out a little bit and they pull the pin. Yeah. So, for example, I had clients write on a house for, you know, $1.4 million, and we were in multiple offers. We paid a good dollar for that home. We haven't moved subjects yet, so I can't say how much, but a lot of those women fancy clauses that we would have had in a normal offer, I tell my buyer, you know, got to get that out, subject to lawyer's approval. You trust me, this contract's good, get that out. So we whittled it down to 3 subjects. We had to have financing in because they didn't have their I's dotted and T's crossed, but spoke to their broker and they said, I can have this done in 3 days. I said, okay, can you have this done in 3 days? Because this is what we're putting in our contract. And if we don't remove in 3 days, we're going to get bumped. So 3 days for subjects, 2 days for home inspection. And we hoped, because if the other buyer had come in cash, it would have been dead, right? We got it because of, you know, we'll never know for sure, but the other buyer may have had the usual subjects in. So ultimately you just try to give the seller confidence in the buyer that they're not going to walk away from the deal before subject removal. Few subjects, short time for few, I guess.
That's
right?
interesting. So any offer that we get here, we take 10 days to meet our conditions. And if you're on well and septic, you're probably 12, 14 days. So, and that includes your financing.
And that's typical here. But in this market, if you try that as a buyer, you're dead.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And
Yeah,
I
We're
don't
like
know.
you. We're still 10 to 14 days for our condition window as well, even in this scenario.
And
Wow.
we'll list a property and we'll get 30 offers. And of those 30 offers, they sort of go into 2 piles, A pile and B pile. A pile is firm deals and B pile are conditional deals. And the conditional deals, you sort of look at, okay, what price are they offering for their conditions? If they don't even come close to the firm deals in price, they're just put in the pile and left there. And then you look at the firm deals and there could be, you know, 6 or 7 of those offers that are 150,000 over list price. No conditions, closing in a month.
So when it comes to a firm deal, how many of them fall?
I would say less than 1%, like very, very few firm deals fall through.
Would they be like cash only deals?
They could have financing, but they're not making it part of their condition.
I don't think, wow, I don't think we could do that down here. Because, you know, the lenders or the underwriters are asking for home inspections and they're asking for appraisals. I don't know. I don't know why the banks are the banks. Like Scotiabank, you're there is no different than it is here. So why?
I'd be surprised if the banks were asking for conditions. Like the bank is just looking at affordability, right? So if the buyer says, I want to buy this house because I can afford it, and I take the risk on inspection, I don't know why the bank would be involved on conditionals.
We've had to send our summary of the inspection to the lender. But I would tell you, out of the homes that we sold last year, almost every one of them, except even our new construction, needed to have an appraisal done before the funds were issued. So isn't that interesting? Like the same bank, right?
Well, we will get appraisals done. Banks will do appraisals, but it won't affect the sale. So for instance, if a buyer pays $500,000 for the appraisal and it comes in at $450,000, the buyer has to come up with the $50,000 difference, and they do.
Yeah, well, of course, but I mean that would be no different here. But it's just different how we're so reserved here, I guess, would be the answer. But a question for you.
There's nothing reserved about you, Sandra.
I'm just thinking. Oh, I love you, Darren. So my question is, so the house that just sold for $575. So now you have, let's say, now Mr. Seller, you know, who lives next door to the 575, same type of house, etc. Would you recommend they list now at 575, or should they list at, you know, what the other seller did?
So as a general rule, we list at 5% less than we think it will sell for. And it's usually pulling in about 10% more than we expect.
Even if the one that just was next to me that they sold for 575. So would you list 5% less than the 575?
Yeah,
or?
listed at 550.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any tactics in your market, Darren, that what you guys are doing?
To be honest, 5% less right now would be, to be honest, for a lot of people have been scraping so low into their equity positions because there's been no gain. So we haven't, it's really like oftentimes it's just getting out what they paid because I mean, other than mortgage pay down these last 5, 6, 7 years, there's been a slight declining market. So yeah, we're more like the best foot forward now that you can stomach. And only because there's a bit of like optimism that you might even like sneak that price up and create that competing, but there's still a ton of homes that don't even get competing offers in our market. They're sold quicker than they were the last 6 years, but they're not all going into competition, that's for sure. Because right now I think our sales per day to listings per day ratio, we're in the range of about 45%. So again, our net inventory is increasing, but it's just better than it's been. So
what's the average price in your market?
About 430 would be we call it benchmark price. Average price would just be a hair higher.
Wow.
Darren, I was talking to somebody just the other day and they said that it looked like you guys were back to about 2013 pricing. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, last year. Yeah, we're about there. You're right. For detached homes.
Detached homes, yeah.
Yeah, detached, the semi-detached market, like infills and stuff. Again, similar. It's just the apartments that still seem to be at like 2006 pricing. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, 2014 was our peak. We kind of went, while everybody else continued to climb a bit, we just adjusted downward, but not a huge amount. So.
Interesting. And what's the average in your market, Blake?
Single family homes were 8.25, I think.
Wow.
And I don't like, it's always tricky, right? To quote average, because, bigger homes could have reduced their prices to sell. So I always try to quote a neighborhood, right? But bottom line is average this time last year was 7 and change. Now we're 8 and change. And it didn't seem that long ago we were the same as Calgary. Wow. And Darren, when you say that number, my jaw hits the floor.
I remember.
And I'd have to check
sad.
my watch. I'd have to check my watch to see what the average price is because it's gone up in the last hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's crazy. When I started real estate 10 years ago, I remember quoting that my average price point was 232,000. And so we're at about 364-ish here on any given day. I mean, that's big for us, right? Here in Halifax, obviously, but the new construction, that is flying off the shelves here. And, it's mid 500s what's selling there. And that's for a little smaller single family home. So it's been, it'll be interesting, I think, as the year progresses to see, again, consumer confidence rising. And hopefully, there won't be many foreclosures with, taxes and people losing their jobs. I really hope that, the markets for all of us just continue.
Well, I'll tell you a story. I have a seller that wants to sell starting February 1st. So I met with him just before Christmas, talked about pricing, came up with $599 as the ideal price to list his house. We met today and changed that to $799. Since Christmas.
It's funny, David, when you talk about your strategy and Darren talks about his and I talk about mine, our industry, right? It's so just proves it's so not scientific, right? I mean, probably not because of oil and gas, but a year from now, Darren's strategy could be exactly what yours is, and yours could be flipping. You could be in a declining market and you could be going, okay, hang on, we got to price this tight. You know, and you look back to today and you go, wow, how times have changed, right?
Mhm.
It's,
Yeah.
keeps us on our toes, doesn't it?
I was having a conversation with our Ontario office with Jeff, just
He was a great guy, by the way.
yeah, amazing
Yeah.
guy, way smarter than me. Should have had him on. But he was saying, Darren, tell me when you guys knew if there was any indicators when your market was going to change, you know. And of course, we have so many different factors with oil and gas, and it was just an interesting conversation because he's riding that wave up, and they're making money hand over fist as investors, and their clients, like you said, sellers are winning, buyers are struggling. And but it's like as I was discussing the indicators that came and then what affected our market, there's no way that same indicator is going to affect what it might slow their market down eventually, right? So it is so hyper specific that you just need to have a pulse, right? You just need to be on the pulse, or you could get missed.
Yep.
Our trend here started at the end of 2017. Stale product that was on the market in the fourth quarter started selling. And we've been in a buyer's market here, you know, with 10 months of inventory. And it just started changing. It started going down. And I think 2019, we were a balanced market. And 2020, I think it was like 3 months. And it just kept going down. And yeah, our trend was the end of 2017. And could I tell you why it happened? Absolutely no idea. It just happened here.
Mhm.
But this is the hardest year that I could, for me to try to get a price on a home. Typically I can go in, well, you know, CMHC allows for about 2% a year here. So I can still do that. But then this year we're at 11%. So it's, I've never struggled so much before with pricing. I mean, it's almost like a shot in the dark here.
Yeah, and for us, it's sort of get close to a list price and then just roll the dice. Like where you start isn't necessarily anywhere close to where you're going to end.
No, I hear you. Well, guys, this has been great. And I'd love for you to join me again next month, because it'd be interesting to hear about your markets again, to see how things have changed, if they've changed. And, you know, hopefully our buyers will be able to, you know, secure some homes. Any final thoughts for anybody?
Just
No,
thanks.
we're good.
I'd say the one thing for the Calgary market that's been positive for us because of this adjustment is the affordability has maintained itself. So we're a little different, right? So our buyers we're still getting a lot of new home buyers buying and not getting priced out. And then investors are doing fairly well because the cash flow is strong because our pricing hasn't just jumped. So that cash to rent ratio is really good. So our investors, and we're actually getting Vancouver and Toronto money coming to Calgary for the cash flow because some of their markets have kind of capped out from a pricing standpoint. So that's been an interesting shift for us where we were pitching hard for years and now people are actually spending good money, long-term money here from the cash flow perspective.
Can I ask a question, Darren? Yes, sorry.
Go ahead, Blake, sorry.
Sorry, I keep interrupting. Sorry, Sandra. Darren, what's the downtown lease situation in Calgary? Do you follow that?
Yeah, it's not good. It's at least 30 to 35% vacant. Some would even say more. Like a commute to downtown right now feels like a Sunday morning drive during rush hour, which used to be just packed. And yes, that's been because of oil and gas for years and our own Canadian politics. But of course, the US relations are not helping us either. But then COVID, right? It's wild. My wife works for one of the largest oil and gas pipeline companies in the country, if not the largest. And they're all just at home, right? I mean, there's just like 15% of their workforce is in downtown. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dave, any final thoughts?
I don't know where it's going to end up. I think that the challenge is inventory right now. Like we've had record months for the last 5 months. So product is selling as soon as it comes on, but the net inventory isn't increasing. So I don't see there being any change in the near future just based on supply and demand and low interest rates.
Absolutely. And Blake, yourself, any final thoughts?
I'm just throwing it out there that as a former Winnipegger, now living in BC, either the Canucks or the Jets will come out of the Canadian division, not the Flames or the Leafs.
Jeez.
You had to, right?
Always putting in shots.
Not going to be my Oilers. I grew up in northern Alberta. It's not going to be them, unfortunately.
No, not going to be the Oilers.
Well, I have to support the Penguins, so it's we're hoping they're going to win.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, guys, have a good day and thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.